and we caught them. But you know, it was freezing. I mean, here's the thing: is that it was freezing out there, and I don't think, you know, imagine being outside 12 to 14 hours a night in the freezing cold with no heaters, trying to look like you're in hell when hell is supposed to be somewhat warm, and singing. And it was, your mouth would become frozen. Like I would try to direct, and like it's hard to even talk. And they had to sing and dance, and there's
some scanty costumes as well. So.
Yeah, this is a lot more. This is a lot more, I think, sexual than Repo is too. So you have people running around in next to nothing, and they're forced to put on these performances. I think that was extremely hard. Also, what was hard is this thing started off as a 30-minute short. So what's going to be a 30-minute short, and then it became a 40-minute short, then a 50-minute short. Now we're like the 70-minute mark, 55-minute mark. So we basically shot a feature in 7 days, and that was hard. You basically had 1 or 2 takes, and that was it. You had to move on. And I couldn't be more proud. We finally sat back and watched the full edit. And you'll never. And our biggest thing starting off was it had to live up to Repo. You can't do something and have it look half-assed, look cheap, and look like a student film. And I think we dodged that bullet. It looks amazing. It looks huge. And it looks the performances are great in it.
Well, I'm extremely proud of it, and I'm really looking forward to sharing with you guys. But in spite of how hard it was also awesome because it's in the middle of the night. Everyone's freezing. Really, no one's getting paid. Certainly, no one's getting paid for their work. And yet you have crew members walking around singing the songs. and crew members that may not even like this sort of thing. But it sort of was like, in spite of all the conditions, I think everyone on set kind of knew, we're doing something really cool. And I think it translated into the film. And I don't think when you look at it, you'll ever think it was done for the budget it was. It looks like a major studio film. The makeup and costumes are rad. You saw a little bit of it. The soundtrack. 12 new songs coming out on April 1st.
April 1.
Yes, go ahead.
Were you guys like Skinny Puppy fans before you approached David Goger, or was like he lower on the list? Like,
no, you know what's crazy? He was the only one that came in for that role, and I mean, I'd heard of Skinny Puppy, but I knew nothing about them. And it was one of those things that he came in to meet. He's one of the nicest dudes in the world, and he handed me a Skinny Puppy DVD and said, he said, do you know our stuff? And I was honest, and I said, no. And he goes, well, watch the DVD, and if you still want to meet with me, I'll come back. And he's such a stage presence. There's such a character and a badass thing that about 5 minutes in the DVD, we called him and was like, yeah, you're the guy. This is it. Since then, I have all their albums as well as his solo albums, and I think he's awesome. And that's why we had to bring him back for this. He was the first one that we cast coming back into the Devil's Carnival.
Yes.
You were saying earlier about how with Repo there was no room for divas or anything like that on the set. The big question I think people had when they first saw it was, how was Paris Hilton on set?
She was awesome.
She was such a great character.
She was awesome, and the thing which is sad is you get comments, and again, rightfully so, about her being a cunt, but she's not. She's awesome, she's smart, and she's a businesswoman. And I'll give you one story that I talk about a lot, which is, it kind of embodies Paris. Outside, and I had a cigarette, and she was smoking as well at the time, and a van pulls up, and she quickly puts the cigarette behind her back, and a pan opens the door and takes a barrage of pictures. About 20 minutes later, all over all the gossip sites, Paris Hilton caught smoking dope in back alley. And she wasn't. She was in the recording studio with me, and there was no dope there. But again, you know, people log online, they see that, and they base their opinions on things like that. The reality is she's made an empire off the act that she plays. And she makes a lot of money doing that. The reality is when you sit down and talk to her, it's not that. It's someone different. And I think that, you know, do I agree with her like media gossip thing? No. But she's turned it into an empire. She makes a lot of money doing it. And she got a lot of press and eyes on Repo that we wouldn't have had. And she supported Repo completely. Every time we needed anything from her, she came in and did it. And I'll give one more story about her that shows kind of why I stick up for her a lot and I think she's a badass. I went over budget on Repo a lot. And we didn't have any more money to go over budget. And one day a producer came in and started yelling at me, was yelling like, what are you doing? You're going over budget, blah, blah, blah. And Paris was standing there and she goes, how much is he over? And they said a number, 10,000, 20,000. Paris goes, oh, okay, that sucks. And she walks away. The next day she comes back and there's a check. She went out and did club appearances in Toronto and gave us the money that we were over. She didn't get anything for that. And that's why I kind of get upset when people talk about her, because of her, our movie got made, and because of her. But so I think to answer your question, that's what I would say. Now that being said, do I see the stuff she does and think it's cool? No, but the reality is for Repo, I think that she put a lot of eyes on the project that we wouldn't have had, and so for that I respect her.
Who did the costume design for Devil's Carnival? Is it the same person who did
No,
the
it's a new girl named Dawn Ritz. She's fantastic, and again, fantastic. I love Alex Cavanaugh, did all the stuff for Repo. The problem was we couldn't bring in Toronto-based crew members like that. We had to keep it all in LA. Dawn is a costume designer. She works for Marilyn Manson. She does a lot of things in this world. And she came in on a shoestring budget. Seriously, we threw her a nickel. And we're like, here you go. And she turned out some of the most insane, crazy, beautiful, disgusting pieces of wardrobe that I've ever seen. So Dawn Ritz is her name. And look out, you'll see a lot more of her.
Awesome, thank you.
Anyone else? Yes.
You may or may not be aware of this, but I know a lot of females have an extreme attraction to grave robbers. I was just wondering because...
And what are their names?
Yeah, a lot of people. I was just wondering, because a lot of people tend to superimpose the character that you play on the actor, how do you deal with that?
Unless you know when it happens.
Give him your cell phone number. We'll respond to you directly.
I'll tell you in person. You know what? This dovetails to what I was saying earlier. You can never really live up to the character, and I guess I've sort of made a career of being creepy. But I was creepy my whole life, and it wasn't cool. You know what I mean? It's like I was the kid that had problems in the back of the room, drawing like pentagrams on my peachy. Socially awkward, you know. Lusting over half the girls I saw, and not really knowing how to communicate. And then suddenly, when you're creepy in real life, you know, you're creepy. When you're creepy on the big screen, you're sexy. So I still don't know how to deal with the transition.
Wait till you see him in this, too. When that was a huge thing on Devil's Carnival, we knew that Terrence was the sex symbol of Repo. And it was important that he was a badass in this as well. And I think it was a hard thing because how do you make Lucifer look sexy or be cool? And eventually we threw it out in smooth like we did, which I think is really badass. I love the way Lucifer looks in this. But yeah, that was a hard thing, the making of Lucifer. We went through 25 different designs, trying to do something cool with it. And I'm excited for you all to see. You just saw 20 seconds of him, but wait until you see him as Lucifer and the entire thing. It's pretty epic. I saw someone in the back had their hand up, and no, they're not. Any other questions? Yes.
I wanted to know if we're ever going to be able to see the Repo short. It just seems to be there, but not existent.
It's a sad story. Yeah, it's awesome. I love it. I would love to show it to you guys. The problem, though, we made the Repo short here in Toronto the year before we shot Repo. And we made it for no money, and we didn't pay anybody, and including the actors. So we have people, Shawnee Smith is in it from the Saw films, Michael Rooker, who's in Walking Dead and Henry Ford the Serial Killer, obviously Terrence, and Jay LaRose, who was in Devil's Carnival and Repo and in the Saw films. The problem was that we use SAG actors, and the only way that we can do it is to pay SAG actor SAG actor rates and buy them out. And that would cost me $20 or $30, maybe $40,000 just to show the short film because I'd have to pay off all these union things. So it's a huge price tag on the short to be seen. That being said, I'm not saying it's not going to leak online accidentally sometime. But it's something that I can't officially release. We were going to put it out on the director's cut of Repo, but then there was never a director's cut of Repo. So yeah, that makes me very sad. Very, very sad.
Did they not approach you for Blu-ray?
Yeah, you know what sucks is again, we're the redheaded stepchild, the Repo and Genetic Opera. They didn't really show us. I mean, listen, I don't know if you guys, if you watch the DVDs, to show you kind of like, I guess, how not care, how much they don't care. If you watch the subtitles on the DVD or the captioning, 95% of the words are wrong. And like no one went back and actually looked at that. And like that's just the kind of shit. I'm a perfectionist on stuff, and like I would never let something like that happen. And so I got enraged when I saw that out there. And they're like, oh, don't worry, we're going to put a director's cut out at some point. Let's cut to 5 years later, and no one's returning the phone calls. So, Devil's Carnival. Who else has questions? Yes.
Terrence, sing for us.
Sag thing for you.
The ship it swayed, heave-ho, on a dark and stormy blue, and I held tight to the captain's mic as he pulled up his truths. You haven't slept, heave-ho, he said, in many suns and moons. Oh, I will sleep when we reach shore, and pray we get there soon. He said, now hush, love, here's your gown, there's the bed, lanterns down, but I don't want to go to sleep. In all my dreams I drown.
Very cool. Any other questions?
Yes.
Speaking of music and lost footage, I know a lot of people like the struggle to hear it over the movie's ending. Whatever happened to Ogre's version of Genetic Repo Man?
Did we ever put it out? I don't know the credits.
A couple seconds of it on the credits.
It's there.
Just like anything else, I mean, just to even have the stage play footage released, it'd be great. I mean, there's enough content with Repo to have like a quadruple disc set, and maybe someday it'll happen.
We have 72 hours of behind-the-scenes footage that we're going through right now. One of the things that the Devil's Carnival Roadshow has, we have behind-the-scenes footage of Repo that's never been seen, including in the recording studio with like Sarah Brightman recording the tracks, as well as the rehearsals and things like that. It's all going to be shown in the Devil's Carnival Roadshow. But there's 72 hours of that, and I'm talking things that you don't want to see. We have filmed. I mean, it's from the most mundane to like me getting in fights with producers and like breaking down crying in the bathtub with a bottle of gin. It's all over the place. I seriously, Laura, my wife is going through the footage and she calls me and she's like, you got to see this, you have to see this. And it's seriously me in the fetal position crying. Purposes, because it's an interesting story as an artist about the struggles that we went through. How many times the movie almost fell apart? How many times? An example, like one of the things is one of the big events you have to do as a filmmaker is you have to have a movie tested. That means you put it in front of a group of middle America, basically middle class America, and they are the ones that hold the fate of a movie. So you put a movie in front of them, and if it scores a certain amount, that determines the fate of your movie. And they usually look for something in the 50s or 60s, 50 or 60% approval rating. We were, this makes me so fucking pissed. We were forced to show Repo without the music and without the visual effects. We were, I mean, I had a breakdown. I had a complete breakdown. And I was like, you can't make me show the movie. There's no music in it. It's a musical. It's a rock opera. And they're like, nope, you got to show it. And so we were forced to put a click track in, and the click track is basically, without the instrumentation, without the mixing, it's just like the songs raw. And there's hundreds of visual effects in Repo, from set extensions to CGI stuff. So we had to screen it. We scored a 12. A 12. And that was kind of the beginning of the end for Repo. But what's awesome is we have this whole journey on tape, from the idea of let's make a movie, to shooting the short film, to finding financing, to financing dropping out, to the studio saying we're canning the movie, to us fighting and winning to get the movie back on, to the destruction of the test screening, to the road tour. We have it all on tape, and hours and hours and hours of it. So I think it's a really interesting look about my descent into madness, as well as how we got this little thing made. So that's something we might actually be able to release because we own that, they don't.
Do it! Do it!
Maybe we'll be back here next year showing you the trailer for the Repo documentary. Yeah. That's a sweet outfit.
Thank you.
I was going to wear it myself today.
That would have been awkward.
Do you have any tips you can give to anybody planning to do this in the future, like planning tips or anything?
Yeah, doing what, like the stuff we're doing?
Yeah, like filming and all that?
Yeah, I mean, I think don't listen to anybody, and that's my biggest thing, is that believe in yourself, because, you know, there was so many times, as Terrence and I will, that we had doors slammed on our face, and I think the difference between